We're rapidly coming upon our 1 year anniversary. So it's been about a year since we started doing Speculative Tolkienism episodes. Seeing as we've been at this for a year, if you've been watching us and you haven't felt the urge to subscribe, go ahead and subscribe. Why not? Doesn't cost you anything.
Except for your dignity.
Except your dignity. We are coming up to the 1 year anniversary. We are also coming up to another significant landmark. We're almost finished this book.
The actual first book of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, we're coming on to the end of the Fellowship. The breaking of.
Yep. Well, we've got the Great River. It's kind of them just like going up a damn river. You know what I'm saying? It's really nothing to...
but it is so much more than that.
Okay.
One thing I noticed is that since we are in like boats now,
right,
it kind of allows Tolkien to kind of, ease off on the description of trudging along. And since they're just kind of smoothly moving along, Tolkien can start describing what's going on in people's heads a little bit more, which happens pretty much right away when there was little speech and no laughter in any of the boats. Each member of the company was busy with his own thoughts, and then Tolkien kind of zooms in, which he rarely does. And it's usually Tolkien. It's like an omniscient third-person narrative, mainly focused on Frodo and Sam and the main characters.
Right.
Limited omniscience, because he rarely goes into discuss the inner mind or the inner conflicted thoughts of minor characters or lesser characters than Frodo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's what I noticed. That I can't remember if it was this or the next chapter, but like he was describing Aragorn's unease. You know what I'm saying? Which is kind of weird, because it was like from Aragorn's point of view somewhat.
So Tolkien zooms into the contents of these characters' minds, which he rarely does. And of course, Legolas is running under the stars of a summer's night in some northern glade amid the beech woods.
Right.
Of northern Mirkwood. Chasing Gimli.
Come back here, you.
Chasing Gimli through the hollyhocks. The beech woods.
Oi, Gimli, is that Galadriel's hair that you have in your hands?
Trying to catch him under the mistletoe.
No. Great.
Anyway, enough of those types of jokes.
No,
they're so lowbrow.
Yeah, we're not writing fan fiction. So
yes, okay, right. Okay, but Gimli was fingering gold in his mind. That sounds really... And I'm sure he was fingering the golden hairs.
Right. Couldn't he have like come up with a different
fingering?
Like, what is that? That's a verb, right? Yeah, I mean, he could.
Yeah, it's an action. He's fingering.
Yes.
Would it have been better if it was diddling? He was diddling gold.
He was buggering gold.
Buggering has got to be the worst possible word.
That's what I'm saying, man. I mean, back when it was written, it was probably like in the most innocent of like ooh, but nowadays it's just sometimes
the thing is, I mean, I don't know if our fans hate us for always dragging Tolkien's good name through the mud like this. Or is it just because it's only funny because it's so out of character for Tolkien? Yeah. There's very little smut in his books, and so we're trying to just like extract it.
Like, show me the smut.
Wring it out of the text.
There's absolutely no smut, and
right. So, it's not like Game of Thrones, but we're just trying to wring what little there is, or create some where there's not. But that's part of the humor, because it's so out of character.
Right, but it's the 12-year-old, coming out in me. It's like, anyway.
No, but in all seriousness, so he's
maybe we could do the Tolkien estate a favor and just go in.
He's needing KNEA. He's needing gold in his mind, which would be a double entendre.
Maybe we could do the Tolkien estate a favor and go in and replace these words with better words.
I'll call them. I'll get them on the
Get them
phone
on the horn.
and be like, look, you need to update some of these words.
No.
I think
Like
fingering is a little bit passe. It's kind of it's too generic. I think
right.
buggering would be better. It'd be more surprising. It would pop.
It would be befitting of Gimli. I don't know.
Anyway, so he would be needing the gold in his mind and wondering if
Right.
it were fit to be wrought into the housing of the lady's gift.
Right.
So he's,
You never know.
anyway, the reason I'm making a big deal out of this is because he's obviously totally smitten with Galadriel.
Right.
But anyway, so Merry and Pippin in the middle boat were ill at ease. And who does Merry and Pippin share a boat with?
Boromir.
And why didn't they put Boromir in the boat with Sam and Frodo?
Again, you know why? Because Aragorn doesn't trust him.
Right.
You know, and I think more than that. I think Aragorn. It's even if he fully trusted Boromir, I don't think he would leave him in the boat. You know, I think Aragorn. It's like Aragorn's kind of mission. It's like his wrong to right, so to speak.
Right. And I think it's like Boromir's character to be, I don't think any of this is lost on him, that no one trusts him or that Aragorn doesn't trust him. I think it kind of hurts his feelings. I think he's chafing under this fact that he's not trusted.
I mean, yeah.
And there's kind of evidence for that a little bit later where, remember when he says something like, well, I'm going to go to Minas Tirith and I'll go alone if all the good work I've done for this company hasn't earned me any friends.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's hurting his feelings, and he's kind of chafing under the fact that in his mind, he's done all this good work for this company, and it's not his love or whatever hasn't been requited because everyone still holds him at arm's length a little bit.
I don't think he gives a shit about going to Mount Doom. I mean, he would go just because I think he committed to it, you know, but
well, I don't think anyone's expecting him to go to Mount Doom. I think everyone kind of acknowledges he'll probably just go straight to Minas Tirith where he belongs, but he wants someone. It seems like he expects that someone will follow him there. And he's mad that he feels like no one wants to go to Minas Tirith with him. Like,
well, I think the person who wants to go to Minas Tirith is Aragorn.
Yeah.
But that would be kind of weird though too. You know, like here's the.
It would, because the steward of Gondor would be like, "Who the hell are you?" And am I just gonna automatically give you my throne?
That would have been if Tolkien would have done that, that would have been like a Game of Thrones kind of maneuver.
Right.
You know?
A little bit more of a power play, kind of more of a political thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good thing he didn't, though.
But. Yeah. I mean, and we can talk about that later.
Right.
Because, you know.
Anyway, but so Pippin and Merry are in the boat with these two non-ring bearers are in the boat with Boromir, but they're starting to sense Boromir's ill at ease-ness, and so Tolkien's starting to kind of telegraph the punch a little bit that this guy's kind of coming to this crisis moment where he's going to snap. So Boromir's restlessness is described, but there's tons of other like little very subtle things that you can read from this chapter. Remember when Boromir called the boats of Galadriel that were given to them, calls them a cockle boat?
Yeah.
A cockle boat. It's like
it's a backhanded insult.
Yeah. It's like looking a gift horse in the mouth or whatever. Like, you know, there is a gift to them, but to insult it by calling it a cockle boat, a cockle being like one of those little cockle shells.
Yeah.
That are like, oh, a cockle boat. Like, I don't know. It just seemed like an unappreciative response.
Like, yeah, well, this isn't like, it's not like the manly boat.
Yeah, it's not up to his standard. This is a mere cockle boat. Yeah. But that again is like Tolkien, like that was no accident.
No.
To Tolkien, that was a huge insult and a huge slight to Lady Galadriel's goodness and
generosity or
and
whatever. Yeah.
generosity.
Um,
So all
yeah,
these
no,
little signs.
and it's his impatience that's kind of coming out, and
Impatience too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Basically, whenever Boromir complains, I kind of feel like if he's questioning Aragorn, then he's going to be questioning the sense of destroying the ring. You know what I mean? The
yeah,
logic that the whole company is kind of running on of destroying the ring.
right. But if you go back to the page before, though, I mean, he has reason to because all of a sudden Sam saw rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were coming up on the rapids, and Aragorn was like, "Oh, this like
Oh, when he says we've gone further than he expected,
yeah,
and that Anduin must be a faster flowing stream
yeah,
than
yeah,
he thought
yeah,
it was. Right. So again, he's like a little bit discombobulated, and I think
yeah."
again that kind of just gives Boromir more of
A little bit
more
more of like who is this Joker that's leading
right,
us?
more ammunition to say like, okay, so you can't even get your bearings straight on this river. How do you expect to go to Mount Doom and
You're right, right,
finish this
right.
quest? So all these questions are kind of perpetually arising in Boromir's mind, giving him more and more reason to doubt the quest and doubt the company, and therefore more of a reason to do what he ends up doing. Spoiler alert: when he attacks Frodo in the next chapter. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but the main thing I wanted to talk about here in this chapter is them seeing Gollum. They recognize that it's Gollum, and then so now they're on their toes. And then when finally they tell Aragorn that they found Gollum,
he's like, yeah, duh.
well,
Right there, right there, it's right there, it's right at the bottom.
why have you drawn your sword? Gollum, answered Frodo, or at least so I guess. Ah, said Aragorn, so you know about our little footpad, do you? He padded after us through Moria and right down to Nimrodel. So, like, Aragorn obviously knew that Gollum was tracking them. Why didn't he pull Frodo aside and say, hey, by the way, Gollum's tracking us and you should be on your toes and watch out? And you know what I mean? Like, give him a.
Yeah.
Don't you think he should have warned Frodo?
No, no,
No, why
because
not?
I think he was trying to catch Gollum unaware, and really, I think if anybody would have known about Gollum, they would have been acting a little bit more cagey. I think that he wanted to kind of keep it on the DL until he could either catch
Oh,
him or and not to needlessly worry the company. You know,
that's a very subtle kind of ranger-esque approach.
after they saw him, right? It seems like Gollum disappears.
No, he does. They paddle fast for a while,
Yeah, yeah,
and I think they leave him in the dust. But then Aragorn here a little bit later says there were many birds about the cliffs and the rock chimneys, and all day high in the air flocks of birds had been circling black against the pale sky. As they lay in their camp that day, Aragorn watched the flights doubtfully, wondering if Gollum had been doing some mischief, and the news of their voyage was now moving in the wilderness.
yeah,
So the strong implication here is that that Gollum told these birds, and the birds delivered the news up ahead to the orcs, who
right, right.
waylaid them the next day or downstream a little bit.
Well,
Because
yeah, they
then
seem
that's
to
what
know where
happened.
they were.
Then they see orcs, and Gollum's doing "I'll be bound," so they
Yeah.
all think that Gollum tipped them off.
Oh, so now everybody knows about Gollum. So the cat's out of
Yeah,
the bag. Yeah.
cat's out of the bag. This is if you blink you miss it. But do you really think this scene where Legolas sends an arrow into the sky, and it kind of seems like he kills the steed of the
Yeah.
ringwraith again?
Yep.
Now, I mean, it doesn't spell it out that he killed it, but maybe he just like if I'm imagining you're on a flying creature and it gets shot with an arrow, it will start to fall,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it could even fall all the way to the ground. But whether or not that creature is actually dead, it's not
I think it's implied there because, like, if you read the next page, he crouched down as if to hide. Like that was the Witch King.
right.
And suddenly the shrill went above. Frodo looked up, almost above him. The wing shape swerved. There's a harsh croaking scream as it fell out of the air, vanishing into the gloom of the eastern shore.
Right.
The sky was clean again. So, like to me,
Yeah.
Like he Legolas shot the fell beast
Yeah.
that was carrying the Witch King of Angmar, and
It kind of
there's the first.
I almost don't want this to have happened just because it's like such a lucky hit. Like
Yeah,
he just shoots one arrow into the sky like randomly, and he like
no, he shot it at the shape. I mean,
no, I
he
know, no,
aimed. Yeah,
I know he's trying to hit it,
yeah,
but like I imagine there's quite a distance, and to be like, oh, okay, so, but it makes me think like, oh, well, maybe that, like you send a tank into war and it immediately gets like pounded and
yeah,
decimated, and it's kind of like back to the drawing board. I guess I need a better tank, like
yeah.
so. So this is the second steed that's been destroyed under the Ringwraith's saddle. You know what I mean? The
No,
first
this
being
is
the
first.
horses.
Well, yeah. And actually,
So
this is the first of two fell beasts that get shot down by Legolas. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Um,
I guess my point is that like maybe I'm thinking too much of Smaug
yeah,
and
yeah,
how Smaug was basically armored from arrows and missiles,
right,
except for the
right.
little thing. So I'm like, wow, that seems like a lucky hit to be able to pull down one of these flying
Yeah,
beasts.
but
I guess it's not a Smaug.
no, but the general knowledge or whatever was that dragons were soft underneath, vulnerable in the chest, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why Smaug had all of that the gold encrusted
Yeah.
on his
Right,
chest
right,
to.
right. Kind of stuck to him.
Yeah, yeah, but that was to to armor him up,
Is this a stupid
So
question? Was it ever really explained what these flying beasts of the Nazgul like
they
were?
never they just called them the fell beasts and described them as
I always saw
like
them as like pterodactyls or something
yeah, that's kind of how but yeah, I don't think they ever knew what they were other than they were bred in Mordor for
for this
they
purpose.
yeah. I
But they're
mean
probably
there
not
might
as
be
significant as a dragon.
no. I
Okay.
think I think they probably have the intelligence of a horse for the dragons,
Okay. They're
are
more of a horse than a dragon. that's
yeah. I mean that's really
that's a little
for all intents and
underwhelming.
purposes. Yeah, but
Well,
I
now
mean
I don't
they
feel so bad that Legolas was able to take one out so easily.
yeah, no, they were never dragons. They were always like, even though they've been depicted
Why
as
not?
that.
I mean, why didn't they? If they were serious, if uh, if the Dark Lord were a serious Dark Lord, if Sauron had his act together, he would have these guys mounted on dragons.
But where Smaug was the last dragon that in Middle
Seems
Earth,
like he could
and
have
they
bred them, or maybe
well they did
harvested their
breed them, but I don't
DNA
think
and cloned them.
right. But they couldn't create; they could only corrupt. So that was like the whole thing. So they probably corrupted some birds. I always felt that they were more like vultures and birds of prey.
Oh,
More,
you saw them as more avian.
yeah, yeah. That's
I
what I
saw them
always.
as more like lizard like.
Yeah, no, I always felt they were more bird-like, but I mean, birds and
Really?
lizards are not
Huh.
that far removed,
I think I must have seen a painting at some point in childhood that really stuck with me, like a
No,
painting
like, look, man,
that had them like pterodactyls, basically.
yeah, they had them as pterodactyls. They also had them as like if you look at the Rankin Bass Return of the King, he's flying. It's like a dragon. It's like it's like a
Yeah, I think that's why I thought they were more significant.
yeah. No, they just Tolkien just called them the fell beasts. They never really had like names other than
Yeah.
winged
So it
fell
was
beasts.
the Witch King or the wraiths themselves that would fill the sky with terror
Yeah,
more so than the steeds.
yeah, and I think they were just bred to be evil. That because they were the only thing that because it was the same way with the horses. Like the horses were
Yeah.
bred in Mordor, and they weren't freaked out by the ring race. So they had to
I mean,
have
because
like some kind of
Tolkien describes so much in terms of landscapes and stuff that every once in a while I wish he had described something a little bit more. like,
yeah. It could be a pterodactyl for all intents and purposes. Again, I felt that again. And to me, a pterodactyl, even though it's like a dinosaur, so to speak, always like was more bird like to me. So
well, yeah, they are. In fact, growing up, they always were given like bat hide or whatever.
Yeah.
But now they probably the science has probably changed on that. And they probably say, I don't know. I haven't checked in on the pterodactyl lore lately, but
Right.
I assume maybe they're like, oh
Because I'm
no, we
not.
now know that pterodactyls had feathers, bright
I haven't
orange
checked on
feathers.
dinosaurs lately because I'm not 7 anymore.
Right. No, but I think dinosaur even I don't know. I think maybe even some dinosaurs had feathers.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the general consensus is now.
I haven't checked in on my dinosaur lore lately, so
Well, you
pardon
have
my
children that are of
ignorance.
dinosaur age, so you should.
Our
You should.
children are dinosaur age. My child was born in the Jurassic era.
Right.
Anyway, so Gimli's basically saying what I'm saying. He said that was a mighty shot in the dark, my friend. So it was like, yeah, just some random shot in the dark took down one of these creatures, which is
Yeah.
pretty impressive. But who can say
Real
what
quick,
it
can I
hit?
point something out real quick?
Yes.
Praise be the bow of Gladriel and the hand and eyes of Legolas, and the hand of and eye of Legolas, said Gimli as he munched away from Lembas. That guy's always eating, man. Always eating that Lembas. Like,
Yeah.
want to go back to son of a bitch.
But he's just so smitten with Galadriel. You know,
right.
he's munching on her limbos. He's fingering her hairs. Disgusting.
Oh my god, it's so bad. Anyway, but this is like interesting too. Like because you have it highlighted right here. It's not it was not a Balrog, said Frodo, still shivering with a chill that came upon him. It was something colder. I think it was, and then he paused, and then Boromir was like, "What do you think? What do you think, Frodo?" Frodo, you want to? Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.
Frodo needs to be like, why are you always in my grill?
I know. Like, yeah, I know. Why don't you get away from me, Boromir?
Give me some space, Boromir. What's gotten into you lately?
But they Frodo knows what it was, and I think they all knew that the ring wraiths are back.
Oh, this was an interesting moment, real quick. Sorry to be jumping around, but
Yeah, that's fine.
So they're talking. They talk a lot for a while about maybe too long, not necessarily, but about how time doesn't pass in Lorien. They're still reflecting, like they see the moon. Oh, we were a month in Lorien. Didn't feel like a month, or whatever.
Right.
And then Frodo, just out of nowhere at the bottom here, says, "But the wearing is slow in Lorien," said Frodo. "The power of the lady is on it. Rich are the hours, though short they seem, in Caras Galadon, where Galadriel wields the elven ring."
Yeah, that was weird for me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Too. It was like, dude,
that should
shut
not
up.
have been said outside of Lorien, not even to me, said Aragorn.
Yeah. I mean, Aragorn should be like, what's wrong with you? I mean, because like,
are you stoned?
Are you high?
Yeah, mind the OPSEC.
But the thing is, seriously, the thing is that was like a really dumb thing that was like probably the dumbest thing that Frodo's done ever in so far.
Yeah, usually Tolkien has Frodo very, judicious and measured in his speech.
And the thing is, man, is that like we've got Gollum about, you've got orcs about possibly, you've got all these like enemies, like they're seeing the enemies that are about,
Right.
and it's like okay, you pick now to say that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like, oh, by the way, Galadriel has a ring. But you know what? Doesn't Sauron already know that Galadriel has a ring? He has to already know that, right?
I'm sure he does. I mean, they know that there's 3 elven rings, and I mean, Galadriel more than likely has one. But up to this point, everyone thinks Círdan has the ring of fire.
That's right.
So,
right.
What do they know?
Interesting. But yeah, I forgot about that, and then I thought Aragorn's response was pretty interesting. Speak no more of it.
Aragorn should have been like, "What's the matter with you, Hobbit?"
Yeah, keep that on the down low.
I know. You dumbass.
Well, before we go, I do want to mention just the Argonath.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I always thought it was a cool moment, and it's been depicted in a lot of different, Jackson, I thought did a great job, and in a lot of art,
Yeah.
it's been depicted. But it always reminded me, and I don't want to get too literary or
Right.
highbrow, but there's a famous poem by Percy Shelley
Oh
called
yeah.
Ozymandias, where
Yeah. Oh,
it's like the big giant, colossal statue to the old king is starting to kind of crumble down and tumble down. And
yeah.
it's hard, Tolkien being a literary scholar and an Oxford Don and everything. I always felt like he had to I mean, for what it's worth, I think he had to have had some of that imagery in his head, because it's a very famous poem. For those of
Right.
you who don't know it, I might link to it in the description, but it's got the crumbling helm and crown. So it's a colossal statue of a king, but there's something very poignant about the fact that it's starting to crumble, which just shows like the temporal nature of earthly power or something like that. Um, and also, there's that moment in Ithilien where they see another kind of giant, colossal statue to a king, where the orcs actually have like vandalized it and stuff. Do you remember
Yeah.
that, where
Yeah.
Frodo and Sam? I always thought those moments were really memorable.
Yeah. But they also like that's where they defaced the king, but then they saw the flowers growing on the and they're like, oh, the king has returned. He has a crown.
Right, right. And then
Huzzah!
and Tolkien goes out of his way to mention that when Aragorn takes the throne again, they fix that statue back up and
Yeah.
repair it, do a little bit of give it a little TLC.
Yeah. But again, like when they're looking at this, like too, when you look at that, fear not, said a strange voice behind. Like basically, all of a sudden, Strider becomes Aragorn. You
Right,
know.
because so it says like the canyon gets narrower and narrower, and what happens to water when the canyon gets narrower is it goes faster. So like
Yeah.
it's just like there's nowhere to go. There's the canyon's so sheer and it's going so fast that I'm sure it would be kind of scary, especially to Sam, who hates boats.
Right.
So he's just like, what a place, what a horrible place. Just let me get out of this boat and I'll never wet my toes in a puddle again, let alone a river.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Aragorn just kind of comes into his own. Fear not, said a strange voice. Frodo turned and saw Strider, yet not Strider, for the weather-worn ranger was no longer there. In the stern sat Aragorn, son of Arathorn, proud and erect. Anyway, sorry. Proud and erect, guiding the boat with skillful strokes.
There's those words again.
There's those words again. Hello, Tolkien estate. Sorry, I'm such a juvenile.
I know.
Skillful strokes. There's skillful strokes. What? There's those words again. Sorry.
I
His
feel
hood
like
was
I'm
cast
in,
black.
I feel like I'm in ninth grade English class and the teacher's reading. And
I know.
all,
Exactly. We'll never get out of ninth grade English
no,
class.
I know.
Fear not, he said. Long have I desired to look upon the likeness of Isildur and Anarion.
Again, like see, knowing who he is in the book, knowing who he is, he may doubt his path. He doesn't doubt who he is.
The other thing is kind of interesting is that as we're getting closer and closer to the lands of men, aka Rohan and Gondor, like it just feels like this is becoming more of a story about men, whereas men were kind of relegated to the background for most of the earlier parts of this book, which is mostly about hobbits.
Yeah.
Like especially Return of the King and stuff like this, you get in these next books, it's going to be taking place in a land dominated by men. And it's going to deal mostly with, or much more with men. And so I think just Aragorn kind of coming into his own here signals like, okay, we're in a new land. We're entering this new land of warfare and men and mustering of men and stuff like that. And it's just going to take a different texture in the next few books.
Right. I have a confession. I don't know if I should say this now or when we start reading this, right? But when I was a kid, right? Because once we get to the next book, I mean, speaking about what you're doing, like what you're saying, like all of a sudden, to Two Towers is not completely Hobbit Hobbit centric, right?
Right.
It took me a long time to actually really read the adventures of Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas
Yeah.
in the Two Towers.
So you mainly
Because
skip to the Frodo bits?
because
Yeah.
that's the bit that I identified with. You know what I'm
Right.
talking about? Like for like, and we're talking about like when I was young,
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. That's
um,
understandable.
because I wanted to know about the hobbits. I didn't really care about what was going on with men. I wanted like, that's like that. Those are
Yeah.
my guys.
No, I remember feeling kind of like I was forcing myself to read those bits that didn't involve Frodo and Sam
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Gollum. Um, but after I forced myself for a few chapters, I got into that story. Because
yeah,
there
yeah,
are hobbits. Merry and Sam go to Fangorn, or Merry and Pippin go to
yeah, yeah.
Fangorn, and you got hobbits on that side of the narrative as well. So
But it was still like away from the action, so to speak. It was
a
still. I
little
mean,
bit.
even though there's actually it was. There's a ton of action, but it wasn't the ring. It wasn't the main quest. I mean, all of a sudden now we're on these side quests in the Two Towers. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But and again, and not everything's like kind of like going towards the destruction of the ring. But for me, I was like, I want to know what happens. I was way more invested in Frodo and Sam than I was into, because I always felt that Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli were like, oh, they'll be fine no matter what. I mean, those guys are like bulletproof,
Right,
where,
right. A little bit. No, I
you know,
liked Merry and Pippin, and I liked the Ents, Fangorn, and all that whole adventure in that direction. But
y-
obviously, the
y-
most important one was the Frodo and
well, you
Sam.
know what it is? I think where Fanghorn, like where Frodo and Sam and Fanghorn, it felt magical. You know what I'm talking about? It felt like, oh, here's Middle Earth, right?
Right.
Where when it's men, it seems like an historical document. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's not as that, but it's like, oh, I'm reading history here. There's nothing it's more man politics and not
Right.
like holy shit, these two hobbits are talking to a talking tree, and there's a
Right.
ton of talking trees. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, oh, here's something that's
And I
fairy
think
tale.
we're probably in agreement that the hobbits talking to the talking tree and the magic is a little bit more intriguing to us than all the man politics stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
However, I think the fact that there is the historical man politics and the war and the strategizing by the
yeah, yeah,
men, it just gives the whole thing a depth
depth.
and a weight
Yeah,
that would be lacking if that was taken out, and then it would just be like, oh, hobbits skipping in the forest talking to trees,
yeah, yeah,
and it
yeah.
would
No,
feel a
no.
little bit less substantial.
But you know what though? Here's the thing. Like, I think what happened with me was like when I got to the Two Towers, and all of a sudden you're dealing with the death of Boromir, and you're dealing with spoiler alert, by the way. Um, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we've got this whole we've got this whole like book before we find out what's happening with Frodo and Sam. There's like an impatience there where I'm like, oh, I need to know what's going on. You know what I'm talking about? It's
Right.
like not that I didn't care, but it wasn't my priority. And
Well,
I
I
mean,
think I think Tolkien was very cheeky to do that to us. He's
a
like, oh,
little
you want to
bit.
hear what happened to Frodo and Sam? Well, you're gonna have to wait and read all this stuff first. And
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, that might have been the best thing, because like, that okay, Frodo and Sam are coming up pretty soon, right? But if they would have put Frodo and Sam first, if Tolkien would have put Frodo and Sam first,
right,
all of a sudden it's like, okay, I don't care about
right.
no one would make it to the end of the book. I mean, even though it's like a great story, don't get me wrong, it was
It is a
you
great
know,
story, but you're right. I think people, if he immediately, yeah, that impatience and that mystery and that curiosity. Well, what could possibly be happening to Frodo and Sam while all this is happening?
yeah, yeah,
Makes the reader like kind of want to keep on reading, and I think it was very effective in that way. I
yeah.
never even thought about that, but
Hey,
cool.
good job, JRR.